book nerds, I'm Aubrey,
And I'm Peyton.
and today we are jumping back into the mystical world of Elfhame with The Wicked King, Book 2 of Holly Black's in the Folk of the Air series.
Yes, so join us with a cup of coffee as we dive between these paper sheets.
Alright guys, we are back. Last book left off with the revelation that Oak is actually another heir to Elfhame, which makes 3, and we only need 2. And Jude does some power boss bitch moves to protect Oak by tricking and kind of betraying Carden at the end. She is bound to our Wicked King for at least a year and a day as she has control over him. But in the meantime, he is High King, Oak is safely in the mortal world, and Jude is playing the role of like hand to the king. I forget what it's called in Elfhame. And she is up to her waist in court politics and scheming. There is some intense shit. This book is it's a political intrigue book, if you couldn't tell from the first one. And this one heightens it even further. And she's doing all of this while the High King, Carden, is well bound to her, not necessarily ecstatic about his position. Will try to get out of doing what she wants well in ways he can, and is so clearly still like kind of infatuated with her.
Yeah. Yes, there is some crazy like it's a two-sided story here, and it is just absolutely crazy. All right, so that's all we kind of want to say about the transition here. We want to, of course, jump into our star ratings. This book for me, this is a 5 out of 5. And when both in our previous video, I said that The Cruel Prince was a 4 out of 5 for me because I knew that the following books I would absolutely fall in love with. This is a 5 out of 5. Of course, Holly Black does not disappoint with that ending. Oh my gosh. So all you need to know, great ending, great story. You must give it a read. This is a 5 out of 5 for me.
Yes, obviously this is a 5 out of 5 for me. This is my favorite series ever. Every single book is a banger that I am obsessed with. Holly Black, once again, showing us how gut-wrenchingly beautiful her prose can be, how strong a voice Jude is. Everything that you loved, that I loved in Cruel Prince is here, only heightened. Like, the plot just gets better. And I really love seeing Jude navigate the Fae world, and just it really starts to feel like she belongs in this book. That ending, you gotta read it. If you haven't read this book yet, pick it up right now.
Pick it up. All right, so that is our star review. Of course, if you have not watched the first episode we did, which is reviewing The Cruel Prince, the first book in this series, please go and watch that before you watch this. And as always, we are now going to start our spoiler section. So if you do not want this amazing 5 out of 5 star book spoiled for you, please stop, read it, and come back.
It's worth it.
It's worth it. All right, so now that everyone is gone, or at least you should be, let's jump into this. So I have a little cheat sheet here of some things that I thought of while thinking back on reading this book. It is the second book in a trilogy. So, you know, things can get lost in translation a little bit. So, I mean, I just want to start off with the fact that a lot of people are confused in the beginning of this book about Jude's role when it comes to Carden. They do not understand why she's there, and no one knows that she's actually the one calling the shots.
Yes, like
so that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a really fun dynamic because the people of Elfhame are like, okay, when Carden and Jude were first like seen together in Cruel Prince, like at the end, they're like, okay, like they're classmates, like Jude's doing a bid for power some way, and then Cardan becomes king. Cardan kind of clearly hates being king, and Jude is there like kind of running the show, but they don't want everyone to know she's running the show, or Jude doesn't want everyone to know she's running the show. Cardan couldn't give a fuck. And I love
Cardan's like so funny.
I love how Jude, like, in this new role has to like kind of do extra shit. Like, in her mind she's like, oh, I think they think that Cardan made me his bitch because what is the word? What is her role? What is her title? Do you remember?
I don't know. She's kind of
there's something. She has a title. I just don't remember what it is. But they're like, oh, Cardan made me this because I can lie.
Right. Because as we know, mortals can lie. And this becomes a huge plot point in these books.
Yes.
Is because mortals, like Jude, can use that to their advantage. Because fairies cannot lie. Which I think is such a fun little like plot and little thing to add into there that I wouldn't have ever thought of.
Yeah, well, and it's I do think that like Holly, while Elfhame is completely her own, I think she does pay good respect to the original Irish myths of Fae. You see other books that have this like Fae fairy people, and they're Fae and like are kind of throwing shit out the window. So I love bringing back that the fairies can't lie, and it makes really fun for the idea of what do court politics look like now when your leaders cannot lie. And that is why, people think that Cardan made Jude made him his High King Sensual.
Yeah, Sensual. Yeah, the Sensual.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like a preface where we start in, the book says, it's been 5 months since I forced Cardan onto the throne of Elfhame as my puppet king. And then 5 months since I betrayed my family, and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, and that is true. Cardan, I love the beginning of this book because we totally see Jude in like a different light as she is kind of the puppet master. And it's so funny because she's this mortal, and mortals have such like a bad name when it comes to Elfhame and their status compared to people like Cardan, who are king now. So it is just so badass to see the underdog basically run the show.
Yeah, I want to talk about power balances here for a moment, because we didn't really touch on it fully in Cole Prince because it wasn't really as necessary, and Jude and Cardan weren't really together much. But in this book, I mean, we'll get to how it ends, but obviously the romance between Jude and Cardan starts in this book because it's not there in the first book. Let's be real, it's not there. And I didn't know this, but a lot of people actually were debating like how, like, if it was like a toxic relationship, how iffy it was between Jude and Cardan, which I think is really interesting. Not that I don't think any fantasy book is like going to portray a relationship that would be right in the real world. But I never saw them as fully toxic, and maybe that's just my love blinders on for these characters, because I feel like, I mean, maybe they are toxic, but not imbalanced in power. And so by that I mean Cardan is a Fae, and so in this world, in this society, he has such a high leg up on Jude in power that way. He is the High King. He is Fae. He is a man. Like, he has so much more power over Jude. But then we see that Jude will manipulate, claw, and scratch her way for power to the point where in this book she like can command him. And she doesn't do it often, but she does it enough that she clearly also has power over him.
Yes. And it is interesting because, and even though Carden, you can see, absolutely hates it, he still respects her.
Yeah.
Like, there's a certain level of respect where, even in the scenes in the beginning where he has lovers and parties and is like drunk all the time and is still so cruel and a complete asshole, he's still like, I know he has to listen to her, but you can tell like he kind of cares what she thinks about him.
Yeah.
Like you can see that he cares. There's not, and I think that's what keeps us like, you are right. Like at some points you're like, is this a toxic relationship? Or is this, and I made a prediction at the end of the last episode that maybe Jude will be the person to just beat the cruelness out of Carden. And we start to see that as their relationship progresses. And it is a very slow burn. But yes, there is a difference between getting power and maintaining power. And we see that with Jude in these books.
Yeah.
In the first book, it's her achieving that power move, and now it is her job to maintain that. And I really think maintaining is more of a challenge than, winning that power.
Yeah, she had a plan, her plan was executed, and now she needs another year and a day's worth of plan. She needs to plan for what to do when the year and the day ends.
Correct.
And also you were saying about how, and I was trying to look for it and I can't find the exact page, but you were saying about how Carden like kind of like respects her and still listens even though he's command. And there's a moment in this book where Taryn dresses up as Jude and speaks to Carden and convinces Carden to do stuff as Jude. And Jude's like, but she couldn't command you. Like, why did this still happen? And Carden's like, she didn't need to command me. I trust you, Jude. Like their relationship is so much past just this like grab for power with each other. Because while it's clearly there, like Jude is grasping for power of Elfhame, Carden doesn't give a fuck about power of Elfhame. And he just kind of like respects Jude. Like, is he pissed that Jude put him in this position? Yes. But then at the end, he's like, I want, like, you like this. You're good at this. Why don't you just become my wife? Why don't you become the queen and do this? I just don't want you to be able to command me anymore. Which is a really interesting position. And it would feel very sweet if the book didn't end the way it ended.
Yes. So before we get to that absolutely pain-wrenching end that no one liked reading, but also made it a 5 out of 5 book for me. There are some things we know. This is, and as I said, this is the whole book's about power, and there's this huge political intrigue, which fantasy and politics just go so well together. They are just so good. So definitely there's that power struggle. The other thing in this book, as you can see from the cover, is the Queen of the Undersea is back and better than ever. Yes. What a horrible person. So the Queen of the Undersea, we now know, is in cahoots with Baelkin, who Carden, totally sabotaged off the throne. As we know, that the infamous evil scene from the last book, where everyone just dies, and Baelkin is banished to the Tower of Forgetting. And there Jude finds out that they are in cahoots because the Queen of the Undersea wants to join the land and sea, and basically, once again, we're in this for the power move. So that is a huge, that's probably the biggest politics other than Jude and Carden that we're dealing with in this book, is Baelkin and the Undersea's little sabotage. They're in cahoots with each other and they want the crown.
Yeah, and it gets to the point where I love the fact that Narcissa, she tells Jude, she's like, hey, someone you love has already betrayed you. And betrayal is like such a harsh topic for Jude because she's got a lot of it going on already. She has layers of betrayal. That's kind of like almost like even just the beginning. Like her father, Maddox, betrayed her by killing her parents. Like that was a betrayal, even though it wasn't like he didn't really know her, but like kind of growing up with that. And so Jude just kind of goes like paranoid, and she's like, I need to know my shit. Like obviously this is true because our fae can't lie, which is again so much fun. And it turns out to be Ghost.
Yeah, the Ghost. This is really hard because it's the Court of Shadows, correct?
Yes.
So the Court of Shadows, like the Ghost hurts more than when we see Taryn betray Jude in my eyes, because the Court of Shadows is her new family, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't fully trust Cardin. She doesn't trust Maddox. She doesn't fully trust Taryn. But those, the Bomb, the Roach, and the Ghost.
Yeah.
She trusts them. They are her found family. There were huge elements of found family in the last book. So when we see this and the Ghost says, I serve Dane, not you, it's just like, that stung so much.
Yeah.
So then Jude is captured by the Undersea, and it's all because the Ghost absolutely betrayed her. And yeah, so when she said that, like, someone's going to betray you, I was like, oh, like, that's definitely Taryn. Like, Locke has her under literally a lock and key. Like, he has her under, like, wrapped around his finger. Like, something's gonna happen, or Maddox, or maybe even Cardin. But the Ghost, I did not see that coming whatsoever. So that stung.
Yeah, like, because like you were saying about family, like Jude's main struggle throughout all of the books is finding where her place is within fairy, because like even her sister, I don't remember what book it's in, it might be I think it's the first one, but Vivian is like why do you stay, like why would you want to be here in Elfhame? And Jude's like, this is my home, like this is where I grew up, like I don't want to leave. And so Jude's whole struggle is about finding a place within Elfhame for her to feel at home, and the Court of Shadows is that home she fought tooth and nail to get in the first book. She wanted to be a knight, and she couldn't, so she became this spy, and they were everything. And then it leads to her being kidnapped, and like the shit she went through under the sea is like high level, like rough. Like I like had to like put the book down, like be like, oh my god. And she's there for a while.
Yeah, she's there for a long time, and the whole time we're thinking like, what's Taryn thinking? What's Maddox thinking? And this whole time they're just scheming while she's underneath the undersea. And these scenes are very hard to be a part of because to read it is absolutely devastating.
Yeah.
She's just so vulnerable. There's a lot happening. She cannot be glamored because she has that guise or guise that Dane put on her. So she has to pretend to be glamored for her own survival. Especially the scene that kills me is when Balekin comes in and like kisses her, and she feels like she has to. So like it's not so much of like a violating sort of thing because she did it back, but it's the painful thing is that she felt like she had to do that. And then of course she's having withdrawal from poison because she's been poisoning herself a little bit every day. So now, on top of all of this, she's also starving, and she's going through withdrawal. And there's, while she's down there, she says, some part of me hopes that Cardin misses me. And that's when we fully understand that, I was like, what? What? Like, we totally understand that she totally loves him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not as one-sided of a relationship as you might think. Like, there's still definitely, because you know all this time that Carden is crushing on Jude. Like, you know that's why he lets her get away with the shit she does. You can see it in his actions, even if it's like a weird like obsession crush. We know it from book one. But Jude always was like kind of just exploring the relationship because it was there, not necessarily it was something she was like actively seeking out. Like in the first book, she like kisses him, and it's almost like a cat. Like it just feels like a curiosity of like, what is this like? Like, oh, I can sense that he likes me. Like this is like, and there was always a distance for Jude, but you can tell she's like, I hope Carden misses me. Like she is, and I feel like this, like her being under the water, is stripping down all of these like guards that she built up. Like Jude made herself, especially right before she got kidnapped, so big. So she is, she has this high position in court. She's ruling Elfhame behind the shadows. She has her court of shadows. Like she has all these protections and walls built up, and you just are watching them crumble. She's admitting about Carden. This is when she's most emotional, vulnerable, and like even like you were saying with the poison, like she worked so hard to be like immune to poison and to do all of that. She had such a good scene in Cruel Prince where Maddox like, how did you know what cup I picked? She goes, I didn't. I poisoned them both. Like that is like the scene, and then she loses it. And it's heartbreaking for her.
Yes. Yep. No, this is totally like, you're right. It totally strips her down. And here we really see the evolution of how she feels about Carden.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning of this book, he's hooking up with girls. I mean, hell, he almost got shot because he was hooking up with a girl. And like, I love that scene. But Jude just like, even though you totally know she likes him, she's like, whatever. Like there are bigger things at play here. I want power. Like, and I love that about her. And that's what makes her totally morally gray. And I love that she does not need Carden to have status. I mean, she uses him, which is like totally badass. But in this case, we see the evolution of like, oh wow, like she really likes him. Okay, next, let's jump into the Masquerade Ball, which is towards the end of the book. This is a very important part of the book, just like in Cruel Prince, when everyone gets like their heads cut off and dies. Like this is that scene for the Wicked King. And Jude shows up, and Carden is drunk off his ass. And I have a bit to read. And she's like, Carden, you're drunk. And he's like, oh, blah, 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 sweet Jude, you are my dearest punishment. And he's like dancing around, and he like kisses her, and she's just like in horror. And when he kisses her, she tastes the poison, because Jude knows what poison tastes like. I think it was the wraithberry, and he thinks someone poisoned him, and he is going to laugh and dance himself to death in front of a court. And so anyways, she's like, everyone, someone poisoned him, blah blah blah. And Veilkin's like, you turn out your pockets. And you are the only one here not bound by a vow. And Jude says he's drunk, because she's like, he's poisoned. But this isn't looking good, because now she understands what's going on, and that she has been manipulated by Veilkin, and this does not look good for her.
Like, oh my gosh. Set her up. He set her up to be the one who poisoned the High King. Which is not good.
It's not good. But I will say, while Carden is poisoned, we get some real cute little tidbits. Like, he says, like, my sweet villain, and you can totally see even though you know shit's going down and like this is not good for Jude, and she's like, you need to get in a bath. You like this is not good. He says all those little things like, you know, like you are my like sweetest punishment and blah blah blah. So yeah. Basically, Jude challenges Balekin to a duel.
Yes. So Jude knows that Balekin is the actual reason that Cardin's poisoned. She has to figure this shit out. Cardin is in his chambers, poisoned, dying, and Cardin this whole time has been like, hey, I really don't want my brother to die. Like, I know he killed all my other siblings, but like wouldn't it be and he abused me my whole life, but like wouldn't it be kind of nice if we just didn't kill him? Jude goes to the duel with Balekin, gets her man's antidote, and
then totally just stabs him in the neck. Dead. Dead.
Dead. She slays her Cardin. Brother. Then I don't think she tells him. Like, I think she returns, heals him, and they like go to bed together. And she's just not. She's like, I ain't gonna bring it up. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna talk about
this is when the best scenes ever happen, and because they totally get married, and and they're basically. Cardin's like, just marry me. And Jude's like, whoa. And they like exchange the vows and totally their love is like solidified. I felt so good. I was like, Cardin has changed for the better. Jude like is getting the life and love she wants. Knowing that there is a third book, I was like, definitely Maddox gonna come back into this, or maybe the Queen of the Undersea, but for sure they're going to like conquer life together. There's even Jude says, but mortal girls do not become queens of fairyland. And so there's just this like, it's just like this full circle moment where you're like, oh shit, this feels so good. And there's flowers blooming everywhere. And because we know that when blood is shed, at least from Cardin, things start growing. So the fact that when they're getting married, and it's so sweet because it's just them like in their room, and oh my gosh.
They give off this is amazing. They give off the idea that like Cardin's like, oh, let's get married just so that way you can keep ruling and I don't have to be under your command anymore. But like, you know that these are two gushing fools. Like, it like the plan makes halfway sense, but then they're teenagers like also secretly in love with each other, and then it makes complete sense. Like, you're like, I don't know, dude, like you have command over him still, like I feel like there could be a different plan, but then like Jude is just so power hungry and she's like, I could be queen. Like that is like kind of see that. It's too alluring for her to be like, I could be queen, I could be Cardin's queen. Like, she can't resist it. And so you think it's a happy ending until
yes, there's a couple things that happen. One, Taryn pretends to be Jude. So now we have another villain on the scene, and that is Maddox. He is power hungry, and he was using this opportunity of vulnerability between Jude and Cardin to take, what is it, like half of his army or something to like send away? Because, you know, Cardin trusts Jude. And he thought that Taryn was Jude. And so that's one crazy, and that isn't important right now. It's setting the scene for the next book. Second thing, so Cardin totally banishes Jude from Fairy. Did not see that coming.
So heartbreaking. They're there, and one, like, you can tell Cardin's like kind of pissed that he's now finding out that Jude killed his brother, and he's like, what the fuck, bitch? And he sends her to the mortal realm. Something that Jude has like all of these books, she's like, all I want to be is in fairy. Like, I want to find my place, however it may be, in fairy. And finally, Jude cannot control him, but is supposed to be queen, so she's supposed to have power, and Cardan bans her.
Yes. And in front of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we see Cardan all of a sudden have these, like, crazy superpowers.
Yes!
Like, and I was like, did not see that coming. Because basically, I just imagine them, like, on their horses, and they're, like, facing the Queen of the Undersea, and he starts, like, wreaking havoc on her. And then Jude gets called out, and he asks her. He's like, tell me the truth. And she says, yes, I killed your brother. And he banishes her. So I was waiting for Cardan to fully go down the redemption road, and then he does this shit. I thought he was really into her. I felt like I was going through a breakup.
Yeah.
I felt so betrayed.
Yes, and Jude's like almost humiliated because I think in the moment she's like, but I'm queen, and he doesn't say anything because technically she is queen, but because he doesn't acknowledge it, she just looks like she's going crazy because she's a human, so she can lie. And it's like this like helpless moment of our character who's never supposed to be helpless anymore.
Yep. Yeah, it was almost when she got married and became queen, it was almost like her reclaiming her life fully because of all the shit that happened during the undersea parts of the book, and now like everyone's just laughing and mocking her, and Cardan does absolutely nothing. He just like, yeah,
heart-wrenching.
It is so heart-wrenching. So I had a couple. This is why this became a 5 out of 5 book for me. Is the ending, of course. A couple thoughts. Did he do this to keep her safe? Is he actually not cruel? And this is like, he knows shit's going down, and he knows that this is not over, and he's doing this to keep her safe. Is he doing this for political reasons, for power, kind of like reverse manipulation? Like, oh, they see that I don't trust her and I banished her, so like, you know what I mean? Like, kind of take her out for a little bit, so I can kind of regroup here. And I think Holly Black did an amazing thing because she flipped this whole like redemption trope on its head.
Yeah.
Because as a reader, we're like, oh, they got married, they love each other, everything's gonna be great, and then she's like, no, it's not gonna happen.
It was not great. This is an original fairy tale where shit just gets worse. This is not a happy fairy tale. This is not a third book war plot, the couple's happily together kind of thing. Absolutely not. He's gonna banish her ass. Ugh.
So yeah. And then in the epilogue, so in the beginning of Cruel Prince, she talks like, she says something like, there are no fish sticks and ketchup in fairy. And then the epilogue starts with her eating fish sticks.
Holly Black's
Vivian's apartment.
Holly Black's mind is really just like on another level, and I could talk about her prose for forever. It's just so beautiful. Like, even like the scenes, the romance scenes where they're like making out, you were like, why is this so pretty? Why is them having sex actually the best thing I've ever read, and like not in like a smutty spicy way, but just in like a beautiful understanding these characters so well way. Like, it's insane.
There's an art. It's like almost like an art of appreciation for one another. It's not this like nitty gritty sexual thing. It's just, and it's not even romantic. It's just like pureness that you don't find a lot in writing, especially when it comes to romance and fantasy scenes. You don't get that. It's usually just like balls to the wall crazy, which there's a time and place for. But I
Yes.
just feel like for Carden and Jude, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, maybe in like future books, if there was like future books, maybe like
Yeah.
we've been married for like 10 years and like we totally get each other. But for this instance, and even though that, and also because they are pretty young,
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it.
it's them experiencing it together. And like I love being in Jude's mind where she's like calculating it. She's like, okay, this is going to happen. How do I like I need to maintain power in this moment. I need to like this is a very intimate thing, and she's like, how can I do this and still feel powerful in this? How can I, like it's so cool. Like it's just so unique to this book and exactly how Jude and Carden would act. I don't know. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the magic system we touched on before, but like even like the fact that like the High King's like power and blood deals so much with like the natural like earthy bits, which becomes even a bigger play in the next book. But it's just like I'm like so obsessed with everything that Holly Black does and everything that the Folk of the Air series is. It's just
Yes. Oh, phew. Yes. So that was a lot. This series, I mean, I've never talked to anyone who has absolutely been like, eh. Like
yeah,
we make fun of it because we're like, oh, the Cruel Prince is actually cruel, and
yeah,
it's not your typical like he saves the day. And I
mm-hmm.
love, like I said before with the like redemption arc trope,
Yeah,
Holly Black takes typical things and totally flips it on its head. And I
mm-hmm.
think that is what makes her just, but she does it in the right way, because
Yes,
a lot of time authors are like, I'm not like other authors
mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to do this, and then you're like, but like it didn't feel good. She has this way of like wrapping it in a pretty bow where you're like,
mm-hmm.
that freaking stung, I'm always going to remember that. But
Mm-hmm.
in the end, things work out. So we are dying to know what you
Yes,
think about The Wicked King. I think
yes,
this is one of my most favorite second books in
so
a
good.
trilogy that I've
Mhm.
ever read. Ending, once again, 10 out of 10. So let us know your thoughts, and as always, let us know what you would like us to review next. We
Yes.
have The Queen of Nothing, so maybe we will just jump on right into that next.
For our abandoned queen. Oh,
Our abandoned queen.
the title, like that Queen of Nothing is the third book, and you're like, okay, whatever. As you start reading, like it doesn't mean much, it's just like another fantasy
Yeah.
book, and then getting to the banishment and being like, she's the Queen of Nothing because she's literally banished out of the land she's the actual queen of. Holly Black, stop playing with me. Um,
So
Obsessed. Amazing. Okay.
amazing. Yes.
Thank you all so much for joining us as I talk about especially my favorite book series as we praise Holly Black to the moon and back. And happy reading.